in the fucking saddle. I'm Derrick Day, and he is.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Aaron Tomlinson, former pastor from Pueblo, Colorado, and
There we go. Give him the full rundown.
it's been a minute. It's been crazy. I went on vacation, and then I got pretty sick. Man, it's the sickest I've been in at least a decade, I think. So, missed what
You
3?
know, when you were introducing yourself, I thought you were going to say, I'm Slim Shady.
Oh, I wish I'd have been clever enough to think of that.
Hi, my name is.
Yeah.
Wicked, wicked
Did you
Slim
miss me?
Shady.
Things are so much more interesting. How's that one go? Guess who's back?
Yeah.
So
There's
how
a
you
new
been, Derek?
sheriff in town.
That's right.
So, before we get started, as always, what is in the glass?
Well, I've had a respiratory illness, so I am drinking the classic hot toddy.
Okay,
So I've got some Maker's Mark and honey and lemon heated up.
right on. Well, I'm going straight for the jugular tonight.
And
I
that
have
pack-
some Uncle Nearest,
all right,
1884.
all right.
And if for those of you who haven't heard the story, Uncle Nearest, I can't remember what Nearest's actual name was, but he is the guy that taught Jack Daniels how to distill whiskey. He was a freed slave. And so after many years, the descendants of the Jack Daniels family got with the descendants of Uncle Nearest and basically funded this brand of whiskey.
All right.
And it is some good sipping whiskey. And I'm gonna pour up a good man-sized
All right. That is a man-sized.
portion of it.
So I think the point of a hot toddy is to loosen up your cough, and I can feel that working. So I may be muting at times
That's okay.
so that I'm not wearing everybody out with coughing.
Well, the funny thing is, you're getting over something, and I feel like I'm coming down with something.
Oh,
So maybe I should do a hot toddy, or maybe this bourbon will do the job and keep it off of me. Who knows?
yeah, yeah.
But anyway,
So what's our
so
topic tonight?
the topic tonight is, and I think this is going to be a good one, right?
Mhm.
Leaving religion only to return to religion.
Mhm.
And let me set this up because there are a couple of verses in the Bible that talk about that when a man cleans his house, that seven spirits return and find it clean and swept and garnished, and they return seven times stronger. That's
Mhm.
one. And
Mhm.
then there's another one that talks about a dog returning to its vomit.
Mhm.
And and let me say this, right? I I think you and I we have different interpretations of spirituality,
Right.
but I do believe that there is something spiritual, right? Whether that be consciousness or quantum entanglement or whatever. There is something more than what we perceive, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I definitely see to that, but um, I think that when people clear their minds, right? They clear their minds of something and then they return back to what they cleared their mind of. I think that there's a spiritual encumbrance that comes with that. In other words, like I was thinking about this back when I was still preaching. There was a young man who considered himself to be a protege of mine. And he was like, when I was all on the grace message and the love message, he was all on board with that, right? But then when I got to inclusionism and ultimately universalism,
Mhm.
he checked out on me. He said, Derrick, I love you, brother, but I think you've gone too far.
Right.
And so he wound up going back to a more Pentecostal, more legalistic flavor of Christianity. Now, fortunately, unfortunately, he blocked me, right? So I don't really get to see, what he's doing these days. But I would suspect that this guy, from knowing him, probably is dealing with a lot of mental anguish. And here's why. When you know something is bad for you, but you go back to it, that's just like, let's say you're in a bad relationship.
Hmm.
You're in a bad relationship and common sense hits you and you break up. You
Hmm.
say, this is toxic. This is fucked up. I can't do this, right? And then you go back to it. You go back to it knowing everything that was wrong with it in the first place. You
Hmm.
go back to it knowing you're going to be hurt. You're going to be torn apart. And you know also that because you're going back to a situation that you know you were delivered from,
Hmm.
that you're going to get torn up even more, right? But you do it anyway. And this is the thing that I'm seeing a lot of this right now. There are people that have said, okay, maybe Christianity wasn't the best interpretation of spirituality. So let's go and explore this wide sea of spirituality. Let's set sail to
Hmm.
uncharted territory and let's go explore and learn together,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so you build a following for this because people, this is my interpretation, and your mileage may vary. My interpretation is that people are trying to get to spirituality without religion. That is like the holy grail for the human psyche. To get to something where I can express my spirituality, I can manifest spiritual things without all the baggage of religion, right? So here's what happens: these gurus take people out in these uncharted seas, and it's like a pleasure cruise. It's wonderful, and you're all excited. It's like Love Boat, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, they say, I see a storm on the horizon. Now you're looking out there and you see nothing but blue skies on the horizon, right?
Right.
But your guru, the captain, tells you there's foul weather and rough seas ahead.
Hmm.
So we're going to turn back to the safe harbor from whence we came.
Mm.
And sadly,
Yeah.
there is far too much of that going on right now. And let me say this, right? For all of you who are Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, whatever, right? If what you do is working for you, great. Keep doing it. But if it's not working, the clinical definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again while expecting a different result. If it's not working for you, it's never going to work for you. You could pray harder, you could fast more, you could read more, study more, fellowship more. You could do all of these things, and it's just not going to work. So what I've done, and Aaron, I think what you've done is what we've tried to do is try to help people uh, not get bogged down with all the nonsense and find a path that allows you to express your spirituality. And here's the thing: I'm going to say something here that's going to piss off some of my atheist friends, and it's that you do have a spiritual side. Even if you don't believe anything, there is something innate in you, the spark, the life spark, whatever you want to call it, right? And that longs to be connected to something.
Hmm.
And so whether it's spirituality or quantum physics, whether it's spirituality or string theory, whatever it is, you're trying to find something that helps you make sense out of the nuances of life that don't make sense.
Hmm.
So this is my setup for it, and I'm gonna kick it over to you, Aaron. Is that I think that there are some leaders out here, people that have substantial followings, people that have spheres of influence, that they're doing the people that are following them a grave disservice by taking them somewhere wonderful, where they can explore and find new things about themselves, new things about their environment, new things about the people that they interface with, and then turn around and bring them back to the safe harbor. And this is the last thing. Promise, the last thing. I'm Black Baptist close. The safe harbor is not safe. And once you've left, you're never going to go back the same way. You're going to go back with questions. You're going to go back with concerns. You're going to go back with a sense of rebellion, and it's not going to work. A matter of fact, and this is where you're going to encounter the seven spirits that are stronger than the first one, and they're going to whip your ass. That's my opening.
So many ways to look at this, right? So many different questions and things. As you're talking, I'm mindful of the first Matrix movie when I think it's the Michael Biehn character, the bald guy with the goatee, and he's like, at one point he tells Neo, he says, "I know what you're thinking right now. Why didn't I take was it the blue pill? Why didn't I take the blue pill? The one where I just go back to sleep, and forget about all of that." And then the other, I think it's in the second movie where he's meeting with, I think, Mr. Smith or something, and he's agreeing to betray, or maybe that's still in the first one. He's agreeing to betray
It's the first one.
the group, and he's like, "I just want to go back as an actor," and and all this stuff. And I do think that it's a crisis for a lot of people. I know it was for me, deconstructing. And I think there's so many questions, right? Like, so why did you deconstruct in the first place? This is what I would say to a person, want to go back. Why did you deconstruct in the first place? What led to that? And what's leading you to go back? And I know for some leaders, this can be a real challenge because they got their, they not only got their financial sustenance from being in ministry, but I've talked about this before. They got a lot of mental and emotional sustenance from it too. They got a lot of ego need met, a lot of need for attention, need for influence, those kinds of things. And then can get out there and become very frustrated, very, very frustrated and very angry and very tumultuous inside, because now not only do they have to maybe take a job or do something that they didn't want to do in order to make money, but they're not getting their needs met the same way they were getting them met before. And so I think it's probably more tempting for leaders that have followings to build off what you're talking about, to want to go back to something that is a little bit more, I think they would say safe harbor. And I love the analogy, nothing but blue skies. I wouldn't call it safe harbor, but I would call it for them a more secure harbor, in the sense that it's the harbor they know. You know what they say? It's better the devil you know than the devil that you don't know, right?
Yep.
And I've been very open on this program with you over the years about struggling with finding meaning and purpose and making sense out of supernatural phenomenon, spiritual experiences, and not wanting to give up on spirituality, but yet recognizing the toxicity of religion, right?
Yep.
And so what is the path forward? And so venturing out without leading people into various different things, because some of the things that I'm talking about now, like if anybody's watching Sunday mornings when I talk about some of the occult things or stuff like that, I was looking into that stuff 7 years ago, right? Yep. But I wasn't leading people to, hey, let's read tarot cards, or let's work with the elements and see if we can do a magic spell, or what, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was my own personal exploration and quest, right? And what I discovered is that people are the same everywhere. And there are a lot of the same pitfalls when we're looking for meaning outside of maybe just scientific materialism, or we're looking for, what else is out there in consciousness or invisible realms, or what is there that gives my life meaning and purpose, or is there something that can empower me in difficult circumstances, the way we used to use prayer, like going through a difficult time. So I'm praying, asking the Lord for help. Is there something that I can substitute for that, or that will give my life meaning, or that will have more substance to it, right? And I found for myself, there is not a well-worn path. There is not a well-worn path. And so that can create some insecurity and some difficulty for people. And so from that perspective, I understand why people want to turn around and go back, right? To
Right.
use the Bible metaphor, being out in the wilderness, we don't know what's happened to this man Moses. Let's go back to Egypt. At least in Egypt, we had 3 square meals, and
Yep.
we knew what we were doing. And so I think that there's a certain, I would call it a temptation, to be honest with you, Derrick, from a different framework that I'll get into later. I don't want to get into it right now, but I have some thoughts I want to share from a different framework
Okay.
a little bit later, where I would almost call it a temptation to go back rather than forge the way forward. Because I do believe that we need an updated spiritual map for the modern era.
Yeah.
We're trying to use spiritual maps, if you will, that are really antiquated from the standpoint of they're very ancient, that worked for very ancient people in different times and cultures. And it addressed the spiritual hunger or questions of meaning that were inside of the people at the time. But now it's just very antiquated. And as we try to bring that forward, look at the mess that we have in the Middle East right now. I mean, that whole thing is based on a literal interpretation of an ancient spirituality for an ancient people that clearly is not working. So I think the challenge is to come up with a map that will address those deeper questions about life and give people access to the realms of power or wisdom.
Yeah.
But it's modern, it's tailored, and so I don't think it's been fully written yet, if that makes sense.
Yep. I think that it's being written as we speak. But I want to say something. You mentioned Moses, right?
Yeah,
And it's so funny that people, Christian people, biblical people will often refer to Moses. And what is that?
that's my phone. My
Okay, I thought maybe it was me.
texting me. Somebody's texting me.
So
That's
the,
fine.
the thing is, people say, well, Moses didn't let the people return to Egypt, didn't hear their cries because he was fully persuaded that God was leading them forward. I have another interpretation of that story. You know why Moses didn't want to go back? Because Moses was a wanted man.
Ah,
You know, it was like once he had gotten the people out of Egypt, right? Because he was already wanted for murder. But he went back because God told him to go back, and God gave him signs and wonders, whatever, that got him, to let the people go, and they're out of there. So now they're in the wilderness, and all they have to eat is magic mushrooms. I mean manna, and they're like, we had leeks and onions and fish back in Egypt,
mhm.
and Moses is like, we can't go back. We can't go back because if we go back, my ass is grass, right? So that's one thing. But I want to talk about leadership too, right? Because you were saying you're not leading anybody, but actually you are, Aaron. And here's the thing, because leaders, this is the difference between, like, say, a leader and God, I'm trying to. What would you call Jim Jones?
What would
Because
I
he
call
wasn't.
it?
What's that?
I'm sorry. What'd you say?
What would you call Jim Jones?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I mean, in turn, a
Cult leader, I guess.
Svengali or something like that, right? He wasn't a real leader because basically he was leading people to their demise, right?
Right.
A true leader isn't leading someone, or is not leading his charge to a place. A true leader is simply getting people out of their comfort zone to move forward.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's a true leader. So when I look at these people who I said, like, they're taking people out in these uncharted territories, and they're like, emphatically now, and y'all hear me, don't just take my word for it. Examine the evidence for yourself. Because when you see people that say, hey, follow me, and I will show you something that you haven't seen before. Follow me, and I'll show you something you haven't seen before. Anytime you hear that, run,
Hmm.
right? Because here's the thing. Like Aaron and I, we talk about a lot of things that people may or may not have heard, or they may not have heard it the way we say it. But we're not saying to anybody, "Hey, follow me, follow me." Leave what you're doing and come follow me, right? Because that is someone that is going to take you somewhere generally to harm you, right? But if you find somebody that says, "Listen, if where you are isn't working for you, then you have an obligation to yourself to leave this and move towards something else." Not telling you where to go, right? But just simply telling you that you should go. And again, it's so funny like when you look at like biblical stories, it says that God spoke to Abram and told him to get up and leave your family and leave your homeland and go into a land that I'll show you, right?
Mhm.
So Abram was from Ur of the Chaldees, which is modern day Iraq, right? So he gets up and he leaves Iraq and he heads, what is it, westward from there, toward Canaan. And Abram didn't go back. There's something to be said about this too, because there are, if you're a Christian, if you're Hebrew, or if you subscribe to anything biblical, there's a lot of precedent for don't look back.
Yeah.
And again, what you were saying, Aaron, what we need is a modern spiritual map, because see what we're doing is we're looking at things through the lens of Bronze Age, Iron Age, people that didn't know where the sun went at night.
Hmm.
So how can we have an effective spiritual map from anybody like that doesn't really? I mean, they had no idea of science, of space exploration, of interdimensionalism, of consciousness. They had no concept of any of these. So when if you could take anything away from the Bible, it would be this: don't look back. Lot's wife, don't look back. Right? Adam and Eve, they left the Garden of Eden, and they never went back. They never tried to go back. So if there is an overarching positive message that you could take away from the Bible, it would be that don't look back. That forward is the way to go. And the challenge is, and this is the thing that really irritates me as I watch these people. They take there's a guy who's a big pastor in California, and he went to inclusionism, universalism, and then to this broad nebulous spirituality. But if you watch his messages now, you see that he's trying to bring people back into a flavor of Christianity. And what he's saying is that, okay, we could take all of these lessons that we learned from while we were out here exploring things and understanding things, and now we could take this, incorporate it into our Christianity, and we could be better Christians, right? And I'm like, this is so disingenuous, because now, and I could be wrong. I hold out the possibility that I could be wrong. But this is what I'm thinking, is that a lot of these people, they do this by design.
Mm.
That basically it's like what a pimp does. A pimp takes people into a different realm, and then either allows them to be abused or abuses them himself, and then brings them back into the fold and says, "Listen, the only safe place is with me."
Hmm.
Right? So I'm looking at that, and I see people like that, they for example, they'll have a title. They'll be apostle so and so. And then they'll say, "Oh, well, those titles, they pertain to ancient Christianity. They have no bearing in our life now." But then they'll say, "I'm actually a new apostle." You see?
Hmm. Right.
That that to me is dangerous. So that's where I'm going to stop and take a drink.
Yeah. So this is where I'm going to bring up, like, looking at this from a little bit different angle. Um, and to build off what you're saying about the Bible. So for me, like, had such a weird relationship with the Bible because I was married to it.
You and me both.
And then I got divorced to it, or with it, or from it, or whatever. And now I'm looking at it, but now I'm coming back to it, and that's where I guess the metaphor breaks down. Like, not to get married to it again, but to see it in a completely different light. And so here's what I mean. I think that, so everybody projects on some level, right? So just from a psychological perspective, if you listen to somebody talk long enough, they are going to tell you things about themselves that they didn't intend to tell you if you know how to read between the lines.
Yep.
So this could come in the sense of, I remember one of my first jobs working in retail, there was a lot of major, like, loss that was happening with loss prevention. There was a lot of theft going on. And I suspect there was, and I'd heard rumors that there was an internal theft ring being run in the store, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the people that was constantly in my department, that was constantly looking for the thief, anybody that walked in, oh, they're a thief, or, oh, we got to keep an eye on them. And she's following people around in kind of a creepy way, even though she doesn't work loss prevention, right? Well, guess what? She was
the ringleader.
yeah, she was definitely involved. So you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
like we're subconsciously telling ourselves. And so, what does that have to do with the Bible? So what I'm saying is I think that whenever humanity has, let's just say, told sacred stories, whatever those sacred stories are, whether they're myths or, sacred stories that come from indigenous people, or in this case from the Hebrews, that there can be patterns and things in there for us that can be beneficial and helpful if we know how to look for them and we know how to see them. And so that's how I'm kind of viewing Scripture at this stage of my life, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So when you're saying, don't go back, that's a moral to the story that we can take and apply to our lives. That's how I'm looking at it. But one of the things that I find really interesting is I do think there are patterns in there, and I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but I do think there are patterns in there about shifting consciousness, or what I would call higher consciousness, trying to find the words to use. And so I think, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, that I went through deconstruction because I was moving to a higher consciousness, a higher state of consciousness. And for me, a lot of the purpose of this evolution of consciousness, or growth of consciousness, is to discover the truth about myself, to discover my true self, right? Now, I personally believe in past lives. I personally believe in life after death. I personally believe that consciousness is not the byproduct of the brain, but that the brain is a facilitator and receiver of consciousness, right? And so I think there's a lot that has yet to be discovered about the self, for humanity, about who we are and about what we're capable of, what our latent potentials are, and what consciousness itself is. And so therefore, it behooves us to leave the confines of limiting consciousness. And so when I look at this, I see religion, at least in the West and at least within Christianity, as a mechanism for impeding the progress of consciousness, for hindering the elevation of consciousness, for suppressing what might be what Watchman Nee called the latent powers of the soul that could be awakened and allow us to do things that appear magical and miraculous. And so in my quest and intention to elevate consciousness, to grow, to evolve, to discover the self, I had to be able to shake off the oppressions and the limitations of a religious consciousness. And so this is the danger of going back, right? And that's why I said at the very beginning, what is it, or what's the why? Why did you deconstruct? And I'm not asking you, Derrick, personally. I'm just saying, you understood for the person. Why did you deconstruct? Why did you let go of that stuff? And the answers can be different for every individual. And then where is that journey taking you? Right.
Mm,
And if you were able to get outside the box of Christianity and say it was poisonous to my self-esteem, it was limiting to my choices, it was made me violate my conscience in the way that I treated other people because I judged them for things that I really shouldn't have been judging them for. And there's this whole new world out here. All right, then that's about my consciousness shifting. That's about my consciousness elevating. So now if I'm going back, then what am I doing? And how can you then go back?
yeah.
Because like you said at the beginning, you're going to have questions. Well, so here's part of the problem. Um, this brave new world can be an ocean, right?
Yeah.
And you can start to feel lost and feel scared and think, well, there's a storm on the way. And then that's when you become, I think, susceptible to what I said earlier, the temptation of following someone back. Because at the end of the day, I think it has to be a personal journey. And that's the problem. We want somebody to tell us how it is. We want somebody to lead us. We want somebody to guide us. And I think we can be led and we can be guided, but there's a difference between being led and guided and being dominated.
Yeah.
And some of these teachers that are, they're interested in their own superiority, and they'll tell you about it all the time because they'll tell you how persecuted they are. They'll have a persecution complex that, people are mistreating them because they're so much more enlightened that everybody's just threatened by how enlightened they are,
Yep.
or how smart they are, or how much they know. But they're never a peer. They're never. There's no humility there,
Right.
and that's where I think the red flags are. So anyway, I'll let you. I'd love to hear your feedback off of that.
No, that's people, like you made a good point. People want to, and this, how can I say it? This is the, I guess, the problem with the human psyche, and this is the paradigm that we have to break, right? Is that we become wedded to certainty, right?
Yeah.
And so if it and I'm kind of guilty of this because, like I say, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, right? But I do hold out the possibility of things. There are things that I don't know, and so I watched that video that you sent me, which was really a big brain video. And after the show, I'll put this in the chat in case any of you guys want to go back and look at it, right? But that we cling to certainty, but reality isn't real. Let me explain something. Let me go. I'm going to go deep for just a second here, Aaron.
Sure.
And that's that in quantum mechanics, when you look at quantum phenomenon, when you look at, for example, the double slit experiment, right, where you express a series of either particles or waves through the double slit, that they begin to aggregate in a very organized manner, right? Now, the thing is that they will not organize the same way, but they will organize, right? They're not going to organize the same way every time. And we also know that observation changes outcomes, right? So here's the thing. At the quantum level, nothing makes sense. Everything is based on probability, not certainty. That there is an actual uncertainty principle that is mathematically modeled that Werner Heisenberg wrote. And then just the mere fact, like I said, you observe a quantum phenomenon, you can observe it, and I can observe it. We can observe it at the same time, and we see different things. That you can determine position but not velocity, or you can determine velocity but not position, and all these different things. So when I look at this, I say, okay, I've learned to have a certain degree of comfort in uncertainty, and I'm okay with that. So what the problem is, and this is the paradigm that has to be broken, is that people get wedded to certainty. And they have to know. And this is the funny thing, right? Because it's a different knowing than, like, for me, it's knowing in such a way that is tangible, measurable, and repeatable, right? That you've heard me say that many times. That's my TMR, right? Um, but others are not so obsessed with the tangibility, the measurability, or the repeatability. They just say, okay, I want somebody to tell me what it is that I should know,
Right.
so that I don't have to think about this. I don't want to think about this. I don't want to have to consider this myself. I just want to have somebody tell me the way, you
Hmm.
know. And it's funny that going back to the Bible, there's something there that the disciples said to Jesus, said, show us the way. And what does Jesus say? Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Can I say something real quick here? I'm going to tangent, right? Rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
That when Jesus was saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life, if you go back and look at that in the Koine Greek, there are different ways of interpreting that I am the way,
Yep.
right? And one of the ways that it can be interpreted is that I am is the way. I am is the way. So that means consciousness, self-awareness. I did a master class on this a few weeks ago, all about self, right? And
Hmm.
it was really good. There were a lot of people that attended that, and I think that they walked away with something, because if you don't know who you are, right, then everyone else is a stranger to you.
Right.
Everyone else, there's no way that you can say, I know my spouse, I know my children, I know my parents, I know my friends, I know my neighbors, I know my coworkers. You can't know anyone if you don't know yourself. So this whole thing, when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, which is how it's written, it's more like I am is the way to truth, right? So in other words, your self-consciousness, your self-awareness, your self-actualization, your self-realization, these are the things that lead to basically, they are the foundation on which you can build core values. They are the foundation on which you can build the how, the when, right? And so anyway, what I'm getting at is that there are so many of these people that are self-proclaimed gurus, and and they say, okay, follow me, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you some measure of certainty. I'm gonna give you something that you can hang your hat on. But you correctly pointed out that the spiritual journey let me say something to everybody that's watching. The spiritual journey is really a lonely one,
Mm.
because it is a path that only you can travel, and the path that you travel is only pertinent to you. Where people get in trouble is they start to build a collective identity, and they say, okay, I want to be part of something. And that's another thing that we have as human beings. We want to be part of something. We want to be associated with something. And so that's why you get trends like MAGA and all of this other shit, because people want to be, I want to be tied to something. Or you and I, we came out of the grace movement. The
Hmm.
grace movement was basically all of these people there. Hey, I'm tired of religious Christianity. But I want to be part of something.
Right.
And so the reality is that the spiritual journey is really a lonely one, and you have to be prepared to go at it alone. Now, where true leaders come in, the difference between true leaders and these Svengalis out here is that the true leader is going to say, okay, you need to identify your path and move forward in your path.
Right.
The Svengali, the pimp, it is going to say, okay, I'm the one you need to follow because I know the way. But even if what I'm getting at here is that even Jesus didn't say that he was the way. If you go back and reread that in the Koine Greek,
Right.
he was saying that your self-realization, your self-actualization, your self-understanding is the way.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's my response.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's attractive to me about just the whole idea of Gnosticism, not necessarily ancient Gnosticism, but the idea, the core of Gnosticism was that it was a personal experience, personal knowledge,
Yep.
experiential knowledge, personal actualization. So the Gnostics could get together as a group and they could give you um, a framework of teaching about the nature of the cosmos, right? Um, or the nature of the meaning of life, or whatever. But it's pretty loose. It's pretty loose. There's lots of flexibility in with that. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
And then teach you exercises that would help you to tap into gnosis. So meditation, for example, teaching someone meditation and different types of meditation, teaching a person how to balance, for me, their energy bodies or strengthen their energy bodies to handle spiritual energies. Those are techniques that you can teach people, but at the end of the day, that if they don't have the experience, what good is it? I mean, it's just like being in a Pentecostal church where they tell you that they believe in healing, but nobody they ever pray for ever gets healed, or they tell
Right.
you they believe in prosperity, but everybody's broke. You know, it's like, what good is it if it's not working? So I think, a healthier spiritual model or community would be, okay, if we can learn from one another in terms of the practical aspects of spirituality or mysticism or meditation or self-exploration or whatever the case may be, and even teach people methodologies. But even then, not every methodology is going to work for every person, right? But at
Right.
least they have something to try, and there's no dogmatism with it. That's the problem. It's like when you get into this, like, how it was, like, if you
Yeah.
believed in healing and then people didn't get healed, you had to come up with a superstructure of theological bullshit to justify your belief system and why it was the truth. And
Yeah.
so to me, that's the kind of bullshit that, if we could do like a spiritual science, like, the practical application of this that becomes self-evident over time, if that makes sense
Yep.
for the person in their experience. So in that sense becomes observable, measurable, and repeatable for the person.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
and then we experiment and we explore and we adapt and we change and we throw out and we try, and we try new hypotheses and stuff like that until people are able to crystallize something for themselves that's really working for them, that's giving them a good foundation upon which to build their consciousness in the rest of their life. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the city, to use the Abram metaphor. That's the city with foundations
Yeah.
that I'm looking for. You know what I mean? And not this groupthink echo chamber stuff.
Well, Aaron, that's why I love you, man. It's like I think that you and I we have this wonderful understanding and detente that because where you are, you're in a mystical spirituality, and you're teaching people how to express that. And like for me, it's like, okay, I want to get to like practical, brass tacks kind of things, and I really think that what has made this work for the last 3 years, and you realize that we're like in 3.5 years into this.
Wow.
Uh, that what makes this work is that we have found this convergence zone of of mysticism and practicality, of science and spirituality, right? And I think that's the part that creates the chemistry that we have. I mean, like we connect on a lot of different levels, and that's more personal. But in terms of what we do here in the public forum, that's the thing. But that said, um, I think that when we start talking about um, returning to religion. Once you've been delivered from the demon of religion. You've
Hmm.
been delivered. You've been delivered, and then you return. Okay, so now you're back where you started from, and this is the thing that, to me, where these Svengali types really do people a disservice. They do them an actual harm in that all of the things that you and people like you who teach uh, mysticism, that teach about consciousness, or people like me who teach about practical application and tangibility and all of that stuff, that basically, okay, you're going out, you're venturing out, and you're experiencing all of these things. You're experiencing a broader consciousness, a broader spirituality, a mystical application of things, but a practical application of things that you can apply to yourself that work for you, that are tangible, measurable, and repeatable to you. And so when people bring people back from this, because I'm not going to call it a wilderness. That's why I called it a vast ocean.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been out on a cruise and you look out at the horizon and you see nothing but sea in front of you, you see that wow, okay, this ship that I'm on, this is a huge ship, but in the vastness of the ocean, it's nothing,
Right.
right? But I'm out here in this vastness, and there is this peace, there is this serenity, there is this calm, and there's this area of meditation, of contemplation, that I can focus on things outside myself, right?
Right.
So you're all out in this, and you're connecting with your inner mystic, you're connecting with your inner humanist, right? And then all of a sudden somebody says, life was better at the dock. And that to me, I think, conspires to do more harm to humanity. Because, again, I'm just speaking of you and I. What we do individually and collectively is tell people, okay, get out into the deep end. It's not going to kill you. It may be scary. It may be unusual. It may be unsettling.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, you're going to learn some things about yourself that will make you a better person. It will make you understand yourself better, which in turn will allow you to understand others better. And so as a result, you become a better person. You're into your consciousness, and you're into your practicality,
Hmm.
right? And so you're living in that. But what happens is that you say, okay, when these gurus say, come back, come back, reel it in, reel it in, reel it in, folks. You're going out too far. You're not really. It isn't that you've gone out too far. What you've done is you've gone out to the point of their usefulness,
Hmm.
and they have to reel you in because you can't go past their usefulness. See, like, again, and this is where I'll stop. You and I don't really care about our particular usefulness to people. I mean, it's like, if I can show you how to expand yourself, how to understand yourself, I don't need you to stay yoked to me. I'm fully open to, and matter of fact, delighted in your outgrowth of me.
Hmm.
But that's not where the people who are leading people back into religion, and this is the thing, right? That the whole concept of and oh my God, I got to say this too. That people will say, okay, we got to get back to the ancient understanding of things. All right. So when you talk about going back to the ancient understanding of things, what you're saying is like, I'm going back to the goat herders that didn't know where the fucking sun went at night. I want to take you back to that. But I want to put a different spin on it so that you think that you're hearing something new. And that, oh my God, every time I see that, it's Aaron, I cringe.
Hmm.
I literally cringe. I'm like, no. So let me say one more thing. Baptist close again, right? You were talking about, you know, a new map, a
Hmm.
new map. So watch this. 20 years ago, we had everybody, when you took a road trip, what did you have in your car? A road atlas or a road map, right?
Right. Yep. Right.
You had a map, and you had to understand a little bit about map reading and to understand roads, to
Mm.
understand water bodies, to understand terrain, because these maps, these atlases will cover all of that. But now you have what? A GPS. Everybody's got a GPS in their fucking phone, right?
Yeah.
And this thing is vastly superior to any map. Why? Because it's updated in real time.
Yeah.
It's
True.
updated in real time. The maps are current based on the road construction, based on city structure, based on a number of things, right? That map will become outdated over time. And so I've said this before about the Bible is that once you understand where you're going, you don't need the map anymore. It's like when I first got here to Tulsa, I had to rely on the GPS. I had to search for directions to get to places because I didn't know where I was going. But now I know 100 places in Tulsa that I don't need to pull out my phone for. What am I saying? Okay, so watch this. In in Christianity, right? The church is the only institution that you're never expected to outgrow. You're never expected to graduate from that. You graduate from elementary school, from junior high, from high school, from undergraduate, from graduate, postgraduate. You graduate. And once you've graduated from that program, there's no need to go back. But in church, you're expected to go until forever. And so when you look at somebody that's saying, okay, they're telling you you're not going to graduate, you need to come back. That's like somebody telling a high school student that's about to graduate high school saying, okay, you need to go back to sixth grade. You missed something. You need to go back to sixth grade and start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that really troubles me about these people that are leading people. Once you've left religion, you have been emancipated. You've left the plantation. You are on the Underground Railroad. You are following the North Star to the promised land. You're rolling with Harriet. And now, for somebody to come to you and say, okay, life was actually better on the plantation. You need to go back. And that, Aaron, that is the thing that troubles me.
Yeah. I like the GPS illustration about how it's updating in real time.
Yep.
And my mind went something I used to preach a lot because it would just mess with people that were in religion was Peter's experience that he had when in the book of Acts, he goes up on the rooftop and he has a vision. Because remember, we were always taught if you have an experience and it contradicts the scripture, the scripture is never subject to your experience.
That's right.
Your experience is subject to the
Subject to
scripture,
the scriptures. That's
right?
right.
And so I would take him to this passage because the sheet comes down and there's all kinds of forbidden foods that they couldn't eat. And
Yep.
one of the things that people don't understand about Second Temple Judaism, like for first 21st century, 20th century, 21st century Christians coming out still not that far removed from the Victorian era. If you look at a 2,000-year time period, we're not that far removed from Victorianism.
Yep.
And everything that's taboo is sex. In Second Temple Judaism and those cultures, sex wasn't taboo, but what you ate was taboo. The food that you ate was taboo. The people that you associated with was taboo. So when we don't think anything of it because we eat crab and shrimp and bacon and all that stuff. But this is like if you could imagine the most taboo of the taboo thing that you could think
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
as a believer. This is what Peter's being invited into by the Holy Spirit, to kill and eat.
Yeah.
And that goes totally against the scriptures. Totally against the scriptures. It was
It
an
does.
abomination for them to do that. It went
Oh, dude, you just, man, gold fucking star.
yeah. And the Spirit says to him, or in the vision says, kill and eat. And he says, not so, Lord, nothing unclean has ever touched my lips. And he has this experience 3 times, right? And then it says, let no one call unclean that which I have already called clean.
But biblically, scripturally, those things were called unclean.
Absolutely. And so he was living by a GPS, or he was invited into a spiritual GPS right then,
Yeah.
right? Everybody else is living by the maps. The problem is Peter couldn't really ever make that transition, because you find out later, like in the book of Galatians, if we can trust the historical narrative, that there was a Peter and there was a Paul. Paul's contending with Peter over not eating with the Gentiles, refusing to be with the Gentiles, and all that kind of stuff. But I think we can apply that, right, with your own experience, that sometimes you're going to be invited to the edge of your group for the purpose of your own growth and expansion. And if you embrace that, then it's very possible that the group is not going to embrace you anymore. And I think that's another reason that people go back, because I think they lose their community, they lose their relationships. And I think because of the pandemic, I still think we haven't come out of lockdown, a lot of us, completely and totally, as a society. And what I mean by that is we're connecting more by virtual settings, and so it can be hard. I guess what I'm trying to say is it can be hard when you lose your community. And like you said, the spiritual path is a very lonely path. And so I do think some people go back, not because of the beliefs, not because of the charisma of the leader, but because of the hunger for community. And I think that can be another thing that causes people to return. So I'll leave it with that.
That's a really good one. So I want to piggyback on that and tell everybody that's listening is that community is not necessarily aligned around spirituality.
Come on.
Spirituality is personal. That's a very personal thing. So let me give you some examples. That when you take martial arts, you go to a dojo, and in the dojo, everybody's studying the same thing at different levels, right? That's a community. You go to a comedy club or an improv workshop, and people are there because of the jokes, right? And that is a community because there's a common thread. We're here because of this. If you join a car club, that's a community. And these are all things that they have a macro appeal, right? But spirituality is a highly nuanced micro focus, right? In other words, no one is going to go on your spiritual path with you. I don't care, because here's the proof of this, right? There are 5,000 approximately known religions in the world, of which Christianity is one of those. But Christianity has 42,000 known sects or denominations worldwide. So in other words, not all Christians believe the same. This is probably the most highly nuanced religion on earth, right? So that is because someone comes up with a different understanding, and they happen to be more charismatic, more socially influential. And so this person is able to impress their interpretation of spirituality on others,
Mhm.
right? What am I saying? That for those of you who are looking for community, join the fucking bridge club. Okay? Join a swim club. Join a Pilates class. There are a whole bunch of ways to to express community without compromising your spirituality. And once you've gotten free from the plantation of religion, understand that whom the revelation sets free is
Mhm.
free indeed.
Mhm.
And start moving toward your North Star. Because again, my path is not your path, is not Aaron's path, is not Jermaine's path, is not Ben's path. All of our paths are different.
Mhm.
And once you understand this, and also understand that your spiritual path, and I'm going to say this again, your spiritual path is the loneliest path you're ever going to walk. You will never, ever, 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 did I say ever, walk a path that's lonelier than the spiritual path. You and honestly, your spiritual path is a one lane highway. It's a single lane highway. So don't try to find community around your spirituality. If you desire community, there are other ways of getting it. Join a club. You know, take up crochet. There are crochet clubs. There are quilting clubs, quilting circles. There are all kinds of things. You know,
Mhm.
go do that. But you don't have to try because here's the problem. And I'm going to say this, and this is my absolute close, is that you will go you can go out into the deep. You can launch into the deep. And this is another one of these things where Jesus told Peter to launch out into the deep and you'll find a catch there, right? You're not going to find the catch in the shallow waters. And you're not going to find the catch, in order for you to really express the catch, you're going to have to launch out by yourself and cast your net by yourself. You're never going to catch what you should catch in a group. Sorry, not sorry.
So, when you're talking about launching out in the deep, so most if you get too deep into psychology from there's a debate: is psychology a science or is it a pseudoscience? I'm very much of the persuasion that it's a pseudoscience, but there's a lot of study out there, a lot of studies uh, that seem to indicate that once you hit 23, 24, 25, you're set for life.
Yeah.
That your personality set, your preferences, your choices, and they basically you're hardwired and not able to change. Now, there are some neuroscientists that are coming along now and saying that's not the case because of this thing they call neuroplasticity in the brain. And they've got a point when it comes to neuroplasticity. But if you look at the bulk of psychological literature, people don't change.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that it's not possible for people to change? Or does that just mean this is the norm? that we see in society that people don't change. And so here's part of the problem. I think in order to change, you have to launch out in the deep. You have to come to the edge of the event horizon and go into the unknown. You have to, which is completely embracing uncertainty. In other words, uncertainty is where it's at. The uncertainty is where the growth is at. Uncertainty is where the change is at. It's certainty that prevents change, and it's our love for certainty that prevents real change and transformation. Because real change and transformation is messy and difficult and yucky and may have several failures to launch because of the uncertainty that's there, because of the experimentation that's there, because of the trial and error that's there, because you're not given a well-trodden path to follow and to walk along for your person. But listen, your life is not a well-trodden path.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an illusion, right? Because you are living your life. Nobody else, there's never been anybody else exactly like you. There's never been anybody that's going to face all the challenges that you uniquely face, that has the gift and talents that you uniquely possess. And so every day is an untrodden path. Every day is a new step where you're pushing down weeds and flowers and to create a path for yourself, right?
Yep.
So herein lies the problem, I think. A lot of people deconstruct and they embrace that uncertainty because they are at the precipice of change. They're at the precipice of transformation. They're at the precipice of growth. They're at the very event horizon of a brand new world that they could experience for themselves if they wanted to. And then along comes somebody who's so certain about the spiritual path and so certain about the truth and so certain about what you should do. And what do we know about polarities? What do we know about opposites?
Yep.
They're drawn together, right? They attract each other.
Opposites attract.
So when I'm at embracing the fullness of uncertainty is the moment when I will be the most strongly attracted to the voice of certainty. And so it's not so much that these spiritual gurus have a truth or something that you need. It's that they're so damn certain in their presentation. They present it with so much authority and so much certainty, like they are the gurus, and you're at a place of uncertainty in your life, and those two things are magnetized. And so, of course, in your uncertainty, you're going to be drawn to the certainty of someone else. But just because, you know, what's the old saying? You can't judge a book by its cover, right?
Yep.
So just because someone looks certain and sounds certain doesn't mean that they've got the goods for you or the truth for you or anything that you need to listen to. So don't be fooled by certainty and realize that you're the most susceptible to being sucked in by certainty when you're at the greatest point of your own uncertainty. And don't be afraid to embrace your uncertainty, because that's the key to your growth and your transformation.
Dude, that's that's really a good place to stop, because you know, don't be afraid of uncertainty. You know, that's the thing. Let me say this, that the world would not be explored if people were afraid of uncertainty, that science wouldn't happen if people were afraid of uncertainty. We wouldn't have gone into space to the moon if we were afraid of uncertainty. Uncertainty is your friend.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: uncertainty will spark you, will prompt you into going forward, and that's, you know, I can't say enough about that. So let me do something real quick. I want to share something, because as we were talking, I was actually pulling some stuff up, and I'm going to share this. Bear with me for just a second as I upload it.
If I was a better co-host, I'd be covering you right now, but
No, dude, you know what? You're recovering from illness, and that's cool. But the other thing too is, I said this to Aaron offline, guys, that even when he's at his B game, his B game is above everybody else's A game. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I just got to say this, that I am so blessed, fortunate to be your friend and brother. It, there aren't enough words to express that.
Man,
Um,
thank you. I feel the
so
same
I pulled this up, right? That so you were talking about pseudoscience,
way. Yeah.
and so you have like hang on for a second because there's the characteristics of pseudoscience, right? Is it's unfalsifiable, it can be proven wrong, makes vague or unobservable claims. It relies heavily on anecdotes. So here's the thing: what you were saying about philosophy, you're
Psychology.
absolutely
Psychology. I want to differentiate
psychology. Okay,
psychology.
psychology.
Yeah.
Yep. Cherry picks confirming evidence while ignoring and minimizing discomforting evidence. Uses technobabble. Uh, we hear a lot about that. Lacks plausible mechanism. No way to explain it based on existing knowledge. And watch this. So when you think about Freud and Jung, five really hits hard, right?
Mhm.
Because basically they were providing explanations that or for things that there were no explanation.
Yeah.
Is unchanging, doesn't self-correct or progress, makes extraordinary or exaggerated claims with insufficient evidence. Dude, you know when you
Let,
said pseudoscience, I said
let,
because I sent you this slide
yeah.
earlier.
Let me just address like Freud and Jung and what's happened in psychology, or what happened like with John Watson and BF Skinner and stuff like that. The reason I say that psychology is a pseudoscience is that one right there, like specifically that one right there, because they were looking at the content of the consciousness of their patients. Now that depends entirely upon self-reporting, Derrick,
Yep.
entirely on self-reporting. I cannot measure it. I cannot observe it. I cannot take it into a laboratory. All I can do is depend upon your self reporting. And then the way it developed was, if you have enough people self reporting, then you can compare, when you're looking at the content of the consciousness, you can compare
Mm.
the and look for similarities. You can look for patterns, in other words.
Yeah.
So if I have 10 people who have depression or anxiety, let's say I have 10 people who have social anxiety, and they self-report the contents of their consciousness. I'm geeking out here for a second,
No, man,
but
that's
this is
cool.
why I think it's pseudoscience. They self-report the content of their consciousness. And I compare those 10, I've got a small sampling size. Now, if I get 10,000 people, now I have a broader sampling size, and I can use statistics. I can start to use some math
Yeah.
and to sort it out. And so that's why it's different than philosophy, in that it does have some science to it, right? Because there is some observation and some data and some
Yeah.
comparison, but it depends on the self-reporting if you're looking at the contents of the consciousness. Now, what the behaviorists did was they came along and they wanted to make psychology a reputable science. So they said the only thing that can be observed and measured and repeated is the behaviors of the person. That's all we can really study and look at.
Mm.
And so that's where behaviorism came from. And
Yeah.
that's why now mental health therapists are generally referred to as behavioral health therapists. And what I think is tragic is that we lost any value in the contents of the person's consciousness because we tried to make something that was a science that doesn't exactly fit. It kind of overlaps
Sure.
between science, philosophy, humanities. It's kind of this sweet spot, at least for me. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I'd say about that.
No, but so I had another one too because we were talking about uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
And the whole thing about basically Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says that one cannot simultaneously determine both the position and the momentum of an electron. So we talked about that. You can know the velocity but not the position, or you can know the position and not the velocity.
Right.
So it's like the more certain you are where an electron can be, the less certain you can be about where it's going, and vice versa, right? What is this saying? Is that Heisenberg was a physical scientist. He was a physicist, right? And he's one of the fathers of quantum mechanics, right? But what Heisenberg said is that basically you can't know the position or the velocity. You can't know both the position and velocity of a quantum phenomenon, right? What does
Right.
that mean? That everything that we know to be reality is based on something that is totally arbitrary. And so that goes back to like what you were saying about consciousness and then embracing uncertainty, because you and I, we've had this conversation. I'm going to share some of our behind the scenes conversation. Right?
Sure.
How do we know that this computer? I'm doing this on a MacBook. How do we
Mhm.
know that this is a MacBook? How do we know? We know that this is a MacBook because we've agreed that it's a MacBook.
Yeah.
There is enough agreement between enough people to say that this is what it is. But you had said something, we talked earlier this week, and you were saying like, how do you know that a dog is a dog? Well,
Hmm.
we know that a dog is a dog because we agree that it's a dog and it's some breed of dog, and we agree that it's some breed of dog. But if we were to look at it for what it truly is, it would not look like what we think it is. You
Hmm.
know, that basically there's a superimposition of what we expect upon things that are.
Hmm.
And that's an evolutionary trait that we've collectively come to in order to survive.
Hmm.
So anyway, that I just had to share that with everybody because I thought that was some really cool stuff. And you know, like there was I sent you a link probably a couple of weeks ago about quantum foam, right?
Hmm.
That you know that nothing is really real. Nothing is really when we think of what is real, we think of what. And again, to use my words against me, we look at what is tangible, measurable, repeatable. Well, at the quantum level, it's none of those things.
Right.
And that there can actually be something from nothing, which flies in the face of the whole you know what do you call it, intelligent design thing.
Hmm.
You know, because it's John Clerk Maxwell had talked about this, about particles, or what we call virtual particles. You know, that particles appear out of nothing, and they appear and they disappear. Well, how does that influence reality? And I'm geeking out now, but
Yeah. No, it's good. It's fun stuff. I've been watching quantum physics videos all week this week while I've been laying in bed trying to heal. So that's been fun trying to get my mind around some of that stuff.
I mean, it's really interesting because like okay, we're talking about leaving religion and returning to religion. So this was my thing. Part of what helped deliver me from religion was understanding the whole concept of quantum entanglement, right? That once two entities become quantum entangled, that forever, that what influences one will influence the other in the same way. And so my case study in that, Aaron, was with you, and how when your mother passed away and you saw her, right? And no and we've taught this before as Christian pastors, that a man with an experience is never at the mercy of the man with the argument, right? So you
Hmm.
had an experience. You would say nobody can fuck with that experience.
Hmm.
But how did you get the experience, right? So you and your mother, because and it wasn't just the fact that you were her son, but it's like she carried you in her womb for 9 months, raised you, nurtured you, was with you all through your life. So it stands to reason that the two of you are quantumly entangled, right? So wherever her energy is dimensionally or whatever, right? That whatever influences or impacts your life here is
Hmm.
influencing and impacting her energy there, because you're quantumly entangled.
Hmm.
And so it's not unreasonable to expect a manifestation of that energy in this realm because of the quantum entanglement.
Hmm.
So it's like, to me, quantum physics helped me to understand a lot of things that I didn't understand spiritually. And
Hmm.
but again, I don't, you and I have had this conversation. I don't think that quantum mechanics is the be all to end all. I think that there's still, God, I saw this too recently. Actually, Niels Bohr had said this. This was what I saw, is that no matter what we understand, there will be more that we don't understand. And so our understanding or our increase in understanding will always lead to more of what we don't understand. And so if you go back to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, okay, I'm cool with that. There are simply things that I'm never going to know. But and this is I'm like Sir Mix-a-Lot. I like big butts, and I cannot lie that 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 given a long enough timeline, we're going to understand more. But we're also going to understand that we don't understand, right? And so that's my close.
Yeah, I was watching and I hesitate to even bring it up because I got to go back and watch about 5 or 6 more times. But I was watching a theoretical physicist that teaches at Princeton, and I can't remember his name, but he was giving a lecture on the end of space time, and it was
I
a
think I
recent
saw
lecture.
that.
Did you see
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I
It was,
saw that.
yeah, and the point he was making, and here's the reason I'm bringing it up. He feels like, so he compares where physics is today to where it was, 100 years ago when Einstein and all those guys were developing the theories for quantum physics that allowed
Yeah,
us to make the technology that we have today, right? That we wouldn't be able to have the technology we have today without those theories and
yep,
ideas,
yep.
experiments. And so he says he thinks that we're at, just like quantum physics revolutionized Newtonian physics,
Hmm.
our worldview. He said he believes that we're at the same kind of precipice of, we need a whole new model of physics to
Yep.
explain the things that don't make sense in quantum physics. And in his opinion, that will require a view that's outside of space and time. And anyway, I just thought it was pretty fascinating.
Well, no, that video that you sent me, basically that was what was the guy's name who you follow?
I
Um,
can't remember. Is it the one with Donald Hoffman and Bernardo
Donald
Castro?
Hoffman, yeah. So
Yeah.
so so Donald Hoffman was saying that space time, space time is a construct that doesn't really exist.
Right.
you know and space time is just a construct that helps us to understand the broader consciousness, but it really, in and of itself, it doesn't exist, because reality as we understand it doesn't exist, right? So I
Mhm.
was watching all of that, and I was listening to the math, and I'm actually, I kid you not, I'm actually sitting up here watching that video, and I'm doing equations, and it's like, my mind is blown.
Yeah. I thought they might as well be speaking in tongues. That's why I sent it to you, though, because I thought you'd get more out of it than I did. All
Oh
right.
man,
Ben Urban is telling us that we're false advertising with these closes. So I guess that's his way of saying it's time to land the plane.
yeah, Ben is accusing us of Baptist closes. That Ben, that's me. That's not Aaron. I'll take full responsibility for that.
Oh, I was famous for my Baptist closes in the past. Believe me.
Listen, I would say I'm about to close. I'm about to close, and I just keep on.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I don't know if anybody wants to join in, but I'll give you the opportunity. Aaron, I don't know what your schedule is like, but if you're open, we can do that. And if not, then
Yeah. We'll see if somebody joins in. Starting to, I'm going to have to get some more cold medicine or something because I feel like mine's starting to wear off. My head's starting to feel like a balloon just from pressure in my sinuses and stuff. So
yeah, yeah.
if somebody jumps on, I might excuse myself and come back.
So let me do this real quick.
Yeah, Tommy says nothing blew my mind like realizing that all I see is light. Nothing looks like anything because I'm not actually seeing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
it's funny, Tommy. I'm going to pick on Tommy for a second, right? Because Tommy is going through this thing right now. He used to be one of our listeners, one of our regular listeners of the Heretic Happy Hour, and and Tommy came to this conclusion, that he became an atheist, and he became an atheist in a different way than I did, right? But the thing is that if you watch Tommy's feed, it's like people are constantly trying to hey Tommy, come on back, hey, Jesus loves you, kind of thing, right? And and Tommy is going through this thing where people are trying to get him to return to religion, and I know you've gone through this, Aaron. I've gone through this. Basically, there are people out here that they say, okay, Derrick, you missed something. You missed something. I need you to come back and see this, and without really considering what have I actually seen. What do I know, right? And so there are a lot of people who are they've gone out into the deep. They've gone. So I see Jermaine Thomas out there, and Jermaine is another cat who's gone out into the deep.
Yeah,
Ben Urban is another guy that's gone out in the deep, right? And how can you return back to the vomit of religion? How can you return back to that once you've tasted? There's another scripture that says, once you've tasted of the heavenly gift, how can you return back to anything else? And I think that the heavenly gift is not the whole religious paradigm. The heavenly gift is truly what is liberating, what takes you beyond religion. And so Tommy is on. So speaking of Tommy, we said we did Tommy like Beetlejuice. Tommy, Tommy, Tommy.
that's funny.
Hey, Tommy, you're sideways, man. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah.
Hey, Tommy.
There we go. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good, man. Well, I've been better, but I've been worse too.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah, I can relate. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure.
and
No room to complain.
not directly, but yeah, in
No, I got no room to
certain ways.
complain, man.
No,
Yeah.
listen, Tommy's a stage 4 cancer survivor, so
Yeah.
he knows shit that we haven't.
That's
we
what I was
haven't
gonna
dealt
say. Massive respect there, dude.
I appreciate that. I mean, I guess I can't take that much credit. I literally just went to the doctors and did what they told me and let them inject me with stuff.
with. Jesus healed you, Tommy.
In
It
the
was the
most
blood of Jesus.
in the most indirect, convoluted way possible. Yeah, after like 3 surgical procedures, 3 hospital stays, and 6 different cancer drugs. But yeah,
Wow.
Jesus, finally, yeah.
You look good. You look
Yeah,
good.
you look fantastic,
Thanks.
and I'm loving
Yeah.
the fact that you can drink all the fucking beer you want now.
So do I. Yeah. So, but yeah, 2 years in remission now, just over 2 years. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, just got a massive divot in the back of my head from the tumor, but that's about it. Otherwise, doing good.
All right. Awesome.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, you can think of that as a love handle.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'll try that and see if that gets me anywhere. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're newly minted single man, so
Yep. Yeah, as they say, but also very introverted. So I kind of want to get a T-shirt that says "single and scared to death to mingle."
Oh, that's great. I
I
love
like that.
that. Single and scared to death to mingle. That you could probably start a new dating site called that or something.
Oh, dude, that's a Facebook group.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna write that down. Yeah. Man. But yeah, I was glad I finally was. I've been meaning to catch you guys on like live for a while now. I usually have stuff going on Friday nights, but then of course tonight, like I started watching, then I missed most of it because then like right in the middle, I got a phone call from like a friend I haven't seen in years, so I had to take that for a while. But yeah, just was able to hop back on when you're talking about like consciousness and Bernardo Castro up, and I'm like, ooh. So,
Cool.
Yeah, Bernardo Castro, and what was the other guy?
Donald Hoffman.
Donald Hoffman, yeah.
Don Hoffman. Yeah, because you turned me on to him, and I've watched him, and let me say this, Aaron, that actually changed my life because I was all into the whole the science of the real, and Don Hoffman is like, okay, reality's not real, and so I'm watching this like you ever watch something and you're like the whole time you're watching and you're like, what the fuck, what the fuck,
Yeah.
what the fuck, that's
Yeah.
how I was watching him. So I've watched a number of his videos, some of the things that you sent me and some of the things that I watched on my own, but this video with him and Bernardo Castro, this is like,
Yeah, it was next level stuff, man. It was above my pay grade for sure.
no, it wasn't above your pay grade, man. That's but here's the thing. Like I remember when I was in high school, everybody, all of my counselors were like, okay, you need to focus on something mathematical because you test high on math, right? And so then I did the SATs, and I think a perfect score on on math on the SAT is 700, right? So I was like 650. I mean, it was like way up there, right? and and it's like I never got it. But now it's like, okay, I'm finding practical applications for math now. So when these things come up, I'm like, okay, I'm sitting down here actually. Man, hold on. What is it? There was something that they were talking about in this, and I'm going to
I
share this with
deliberately chose a career that allowed me to avoid taking math classes.
Me too.
So they were talking about Hilbert spaces and and polytopes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like what is the what is the equation of a uniform polytope? And so it's it's n squared plus n squared plus n plus one. I mean, it's like, and so anyway, they gave the equation, and I'm sitting up there doing the math, and I'm like, wow, okay. And no matter what, no, the whatever number you plug into it, it's like you get the same kind of progression.
Mm.
And so you find out what these vertical polytopes are, and it's really big brain shit, but it's like it really appeals to the engineer in me.
Well, both those guys, both Donald Hoffman and Bernardo Castro, started out. I think both of them have PhDs in CIS. So their first like academia was in computer information systems, and then
Okay.
they both went on to get doctorate degrees in something else. So
Yeah, so like that's my undergrad is CIS, but prior to going into CIS, I was an automotive engineering major, right? So I have this classical engineering training plus the CIS, plus the theology, and it's like all of these, I find a convergence in all of that. So, but thank you for that video, Aaron. That was like, as a matter of fact, you can't see it right now, but this video is on pause on my TV right
yeah,
now.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it, and then we can talk about it, and you can fill in
Yeah.
the blanks for me. Because that first 30 minutes, I was like, "What the hell? What are they even talking about? I don't even know." It sounds interesting. Sounds like I need to understand this, but
Mhm.
Well, if anybody, Tommy, you have anything else to add before we get ready to shut it down?
Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I unfortunately didn't catch most of the stream, but I remember like when you first started just seeing the title or whatever, like, leaving religion and kind of returning, something that kind of triggered in my mind. Like I don't know what all you covered on that, but speaking of, since you're talking about me like posting stuff online and just being like very like open with my journey of starting with just like deconstructing my faith and then to outright just leaving it. So it's a question a lot of people get asked, is like, well, why do you keep talking about it so publicly? Why you got to talk about it so much? Because a lot of
Oh
people
my
seem
God,
to get
I've
upset
been
by it.
tripping out on how people have been going in on you, because you're sharing things openly, and people are like, oh my God, Tommy, you just need to turn to Jesus. You need to give it over to Jesus. And you know, I haven't had a chance to really circle back on that, but I promise you I will. I'm going to
Okay.
piss off some of your some of your friends.
Okay. Like out of my hands, not gonna tell you not to, but yeah.
No.
But but what I was about to say is like, man, you think some of the comments, you should see some of the DMs I'm getting.
Oh,
Oh, I can imagine.
I'll bet.
But on the flips, but I'm getting like DMs on both sides. Like so what I'm getting at here is like but since sharing my story, because one of the reasons I started talking about it is one, just like it's just been in my head and I don't really have a lot of people that in my personal life. There's my friend Matt who like I was doing the podcast with, who he started going through the same thing about the same time I did. So he's really the only other person that I actually see regularly in my day-to-day life who's also a non-believer now. Like at least that like used to be and that I'm still really close with. So for me it's like, oh, I got to talk about this with someone. So I'd like just kind of put it out online and like see how people react. But then realizing like so many people have been messaging me, sometimes in comments, but a lot of times more just in private messages, saying like how much they appreciate me being vocal about what I've been going through, because they feel like, well, I'm going through the same or similar thing, but I feel like I can't really talk about it and I don't have anyone else. So it's just nice to know that someone else there's like, wow. So, but going back to the whole like leaving religion, like returning to religion in a way, I mean, obviously I'm not returning to religion in a literal sense, but in one of the ways I kind of describe the way this feels and like why I'm doing it is because if I were doing something like this where I just felt so compelled, like I got to talk about this, and I was getting this kind of, reaction and feedback to it back in my Christian days, I would have like the language I would have put on that is, oh, this is clearly my calling. Like this is exactly what that feels
Yeah.
like now. But it's just so much nicer not having it under that construct and with all that baggage and all that
Mhm.
bullshit. But so to where it is like, no, this isn't, and not even the pressure of, I feel like this is what God wants me to do and he needs me to do, is like, no, this is just completely coming from, this is just where I'm at. This is what
Yeah.
I feel, compelled to do. So yeah, so it's like, so just, but speaking of, listening to other people's, opinions and voices, obviously people like you, Derrick, and then now like getting um, get to know a little more of like your like perspective on things, Aaron, and like so many other people I've just been beginning to know like in this virtual space that have been like helping me out, and then also just being willing to listen to me ramble on about stuff and taking interest in me and my story. That's been like I guess without this virtual community, these past couple of years would have been a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
So
It's really
yeah.
cool, Tommy, what you're saying, because I don't know how much of you said you didn't catch the first part, and then somebody called, but a big chunk of what Derrick and I talked about tonight was just the spiritual path being a personal thing, and nobody can tell you, what it is. And so just the way you shared that, exactly the way you shared that about, it's not under the construct of it being a calling, and it doesn't come with all that baggage and all that bullshit, but it feels good. Like I'm finding a voice and I'm finding a path, and it's a
Yeah.
perfect illustration, I think, don't you, Derrick, of exactly what we
Absolutely.
spent the bulk of our time talking
Yeah.
about. So I'm
Yep.
really glad you came on and shared
Yeah.
that.
I guess I missed it, but I guess I didn't really miss it. So
Well, you were right in line with it for sure.
Yeah, you were there in the spirit,
The
Tom.
Holy Ghost
You were
was
there in
leading
the spirit.
correctly.
you can't
The
explain
Lord
that.
led you to this.
That's right.
Clearly. So.
No, but really, it really is a powerful example, I think, of what we were talking about.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Cool.
So Tommy, I'm glad that you came in to bring some practical application to this and also some metaphysical understanding. See, that's the beauty of this. It's like it's all converging.
Yeah, that's like because when people talk like because I would have put it in language of things like prophecy or like listening to the spirit, because like in some situations, and I've had these experiences too, where I've had people tell me things like, yeah, there's no way you could have known that had to be from God, or I would say something to somebody and they would say the same thing. It's like, I wonder if there's clearly something going on we don't quite understand. But I think since there's so much even like within our own bodies, like one way I like to think about it is my body, like my body knows how to do a lot of things that
Mhm.
I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to digest food. I don't know
Right.
how to pump out hormones, but in another sense, I do it all the time. So I'm just wondering if there's some other aspect of like how our bodies function and even like communicate with other bodies. It's just like producing hormones or you know brain signals that I am not conscious of. It's still something that's going on, but it actually is something that connects like in between like person to person that we just
Mhm.
have no conscious perception of, but it's going on all the time. And maybe every now and then, depending on what state of mind we're in, we get little glimpses of it, and that's where those little connections that we actually do kind of see are made. But that's just all conjecture, at least for me. But yeah,
Hey,
That's cool.
Jermaine Thomas, come on in. Click the link. Don't be scared. Click the link. It's funny, Tommy. You were talking about this, like that the heart has, and this is proven. This is science. Not pseudoscience. There's actually real science to this. that the heart emanates an electromagnetic field,
mm-hmm.
right? And this electromagnetic field is about 6 feet in diameter, right?
Hmm.
So this energy is so basically all energy is either particle or wave, just like light, right? So
Hmm.
basically, this is a light that is in a spectrum that can't be visibly observed, but you can feel it, right? So you ever walk into a room and you say, "Man, the vibe here feels good," or
Mm-hmm.
"The
Mm-hmm.
vibe here is fucked up," right? Or you meet somebody and you say, "Man, this cat gives me a good vibe," or this cat really rubs me the wrong way. That's all that energy intermingling, right? Intermeshing, and you know that's kind of like that whole how energy is perceived between people. And so again, I'm picking on the Bible a lot tonight because, like Jesus said, you are the light of the world, right? Okay, how are you the light of the world? People don't look at you and see light, right? You're not a light body. You're not emitting photons or anything like that, but actually you are. You're emitting energy and that energy is a light in a spectrum that is not perceptible by the human eye, but your heart energy actually receives that energy and perceives that energy.
Hmm.
So,
Yep. I
oh,
did my master's thesis on that actually.
Ben said
Wow.
post the link, but where I posted it. I posted it, Ben.
Yeah, I think it's on your Derrick Day multimedia page. That's where I clicked on it. So if you're,
Okay.
yeah, because I had been watching just on your personal page, but
Okay. So let's go back to this real quick because I don't want to keep Aaron beyond pumpkin time.
yeah, but yeah, because like with all this stuff, like I love like the fact that like science is starting to actually like maybe not necessarily figure out more of it, but more figure out what still needs to be figured out. Like if
Yep.
that makes sense. Like, because I still very much consider myself a naturalist. Like I've been called a materialist, but I don't know if there's a difference between that and naturalist. I don't know, but I guess more. I would call myself more. I guess there's a difference between there's methodological naturalism and philosophical naturalism, or the philosophical, I guess put it in terms like atheism. Philosophical naturalism is more like positive atheism, where it's saying it's like I'm just saying there is no supernatural, but methodological is more just like, well, so far all I'm seeing is the natural. I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to like the supernatural realm.
Well, here's the
But
thing. For
yeah,
me, it's like I do acknowledge a supernatural realm. There are things that whether you call it dimensionalism or whether you call it consciousness, there are things that my physical understanding, that my mathematical modeling doesn't understand, and I'm okay with that because I fall
hmm
back to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and say, okay, I don't I may know the velocity of the thing, but I don't know the location, or I may know the location, but I don't know the velocity, and
hmm
that that understanding that uncertainty at the underlying root of things says that, okay, I don't need to understand everything. All I need to do is I need to have a basic concept. If I have a basic concept of the construct, then I have something that I can operate with, but I could say I'm cool with not knowing everything. And that's
Right.
something that Aaron has taught me, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I said why I'm not completely closed off to the idea of like supernatural, because obviously, I mean, you'd have to be crazy to think that there aren't things that humans just cannot understand, that we cannot perceive. But I guess the way I look at least for now, is like I just don't necessarily see like the limits of like human understanding and perception as some sort of like special barrier between like the natural and supernatural. Like I'm so not, well, just because we can't understand it, that means it's on some other planes. Like, no, it just means it's another aspect of the natural world that we just don't understand yet. So I would say even if there was something supernatural, and this is just where I'm at now, because like I've only been on this like out of religion, out of Christianity, out into like the bigger, wider world for a couple of years now. So I'm still like learning everything about everything, essentially. So yeah.
All right, I finally dragged Jermaine in.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, made you like
I don't
Beetlejuice,
know why I
man.
can't hear y'all.
I can
You
hear
can't
you.
hear
Can
us?
you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, I finally dragged.
Oh,
Y'all hear me?
he's
Yeah,
got a
made
delay
you like
for some reason.
Beetlejuice, man.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, somebody's got an echo going on.
Uh,
So Jermaine, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
yeah. Yeah. So while we're waiting on him, I'll just say, like, Aaron, like, you're definitely someone I would love to talk about more with about
Sure.
that whole
Yeah, because
aspect of things. So,
I'm more on the other spectrum, because I
Mhm.
came into deconstruction out of a mystical experience.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I
completely.
can't.
Oh, there you go.
You guys can hear me, but I can't hear you all at all, man.
You can't hear us. Now
Okay.
I can hear you.
So I have no problem with the supernatural or
Mhm.
with the mystery of it. My thing is to make it more stable and repeatable.
Hmm.
And,
But
and
yeah,
that's the thing that I appreciate your approach to it, Aaron, is that
No.
you say, okay, how do we make this practical? How do we make this usable? Because here's the thing, it doesn't have to be fully explainable in order to be usable.
exactly.
I mean, most of us don't understand electricity, but we use it.
Mhm.
We know how to turn a switch
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's predictable enough
Yep,
Yeah, yeah. And
until
so
it proves to be otherwise. Yeah.
exactly.
I think the key to unlocking the supernatural for humanity is altered states of consciousness. And I think that's why it's not stabilized, because we're more or less stabilized in a materialistic state of consciousness all the time. And we can go in and out of these other states where we access energy systems or consciousness systems that can affect the natural realm, but we can't do it consistently because we haven't stabilized those states of consciousness. That's where I'm at currently with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I deconstructed. I was perfectly happy, man. Well, I wasn't perfectly happy, but I
Mhm.
arrived. I was successful doing everything in ministry that I wanted to be doing, and I was emotionally detached from it. But
Hmm.
and then I had a mystical experience, 20-minute visitation, and came out a completely different person and deconstructed from there. So my story is very unique in that way.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. Yeah, but I'd say similar, like to me, like in a very different way. But like when I started deconstructing, I was also like, because I'd like grown up like Christian like my whole life, and then
Mhm.
probably it was probably like mid to late 30s, I guess, is when I actually started like seriously deconstructing. But it was kind of funny because at that point, it's like in my Christianity, I'd finally gotten to the place where I had basically always wanted to be like my entire life.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, I finally am like hearing from the spirit. I finally am like seeing things. I am seeing the spirit do things. And then it was like at that point where like there were various reasons. Mostly, again, like I talk about my friend Matt all the time. He was the one who kind of started me going on that. It's like, oh, he didn't put it in these words, but it basically the way it felt was like, oh, you like where you're at now? Well, fuck all that. Now consider this. So that was fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more.
Yeah.
We
Got a party here.
full crew in here. Jermaine, can you hear us now?
I can't hear you. Oh, man.
I'm guessing
Ben,
that's a
Ben is trying to join in, but you know what? I'm going to tell you this, man. Y'all get off them goddamn Android phones. Get get a fucking iPhone.
That's what I got. Yeah.
me too.
Yeah, see, you know, everybody's got an iPhone, has no problem.
I mean, I'm sideways, but whatever. Yeah.
You're on an Android. This is going to be difficult. And you know, Ben is trying to get on, but
He's just the void at the moment.
Yeah.
yeah, Aaron, I don't want to keep you on any longer than
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bail. You guys can have a great time. I hate to jump off as soon as Jermaine and Ben are jumping on, but I've reached my max, man. I'm gonna have to lay down, and I'll tell you, it sucks getting older, man. You just don't bounce back as quick as you used to from shit.
you know.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. For all of you guys that are, you know, you made 50, great, good job. Holler at your boy when you turn 60.
I'm glad I forbid you to.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. But you know what though? I'm happy to say that, you know, life is good. It's the body is working fine and, you know, doing the things that it needs to do, and I'm in a very happy place these days. I'm
Nice.
like just really exuding happiness. Oh, there's Ben. Ben's in the dark. Hey Ben, turn the lights on, man.
All right, later, guys.
All right. Good talk to you.
All right, Aaron. I'll holler at you
Aaron,
later, man.
have a good one. Yeah.
All right.
Get well soon.
Yeah, and then Ben left, and then Jermaine left. So,
Man.
and then there were two.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I'm only 40, but I'm already feeling shit.
There's Ben. Ben, turn the lights on, man.
I don't know. I kind of like the whole mysterious vibe he's got going
He's
there.
sitting in the dark, man, looking like the Prince of Darkness. Yeah, trying to get people on here.
Mm-hmm.
But Tommy, thank you for joining in.
Oh, of course. My pleasure, as always.
Yeah, it looks like Jermaine is here, but he's not.
Mm.
Let me remove him. Ben, I can't hear you or see you, man. I saw you waving, and I was like, turn the lights on, man.
Yeah. See a silhouette. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give him another quick second to join back in.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, yeah, getting old sucks. But I mean, I figure at this point I'm living on bonus time. So
Yeah.
just trying to.
Oh
trying
man,
to
it's
enjoy.
like you're on a new lease. Well, you know what, Jermaine? Hey, listen, Jermaine, if you're still watching, here's the catch, right? If you have not Safari, if you're using a Safari browser, you won't be able to get on. That's the catch. You have to get on like on Chrome. If you get on, if you use Chrome as your browser, you're good to go. If you're using any other browser, Restream just won't interpret it well. That's the catch. And I think that we've gone through this with Ben before. So Ben, if you're still watching,
Yeah.
get on Chrome. If you get on
Yeah, there are a couple
Chrome,
times like when I was on with Jimmy, I think I tried it on Firefox, and like Firefox, it just flat out said, "Don't use Firefox. Use another browser." So, yeah.
Yeah, Sandra says growing older means we're still above ground. You got that right.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I always tell people it's better to be seen than be viewed.
I like that. Don't have to use that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but speaking of being 40, like while we're waiting on other people, fun fact, I think I shared this with you, Derek, when I was on with you before, but I found out that apparently all mammals, like their lifespan is like the same when counted in number of heartbeats.
Yeah.
Yeah, so bigger animals with slower heart rates, like elephants and whatnot, they live longer, but smaller
Yep.
mammals like rats and rodents, quicker heart rate, shorter life. But the one exception to that is humans, and
Yeah.
is that we basically managed to double it. So since our life expectancy is like 80 or so, so that means I'm basically what our natural life expectancy should be. So like I said, I'm living on bonus time in multiple ways now, the way I see it. So I mean, most
Yeah,
people are. So
I think that with Homo erectus, it has to do with our standing.
mm,
Our longevity
interesting.
has to do with our standing. When you look at other mammals, they're on all fours.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, and then obviously, and our life expectancy even now is longer than it had been. So I probably got to credit, medical science and all the things we've discovered about, how to keep ourselves going longer. And so, yeah,
Well, it looks like nobody else is going to join. So, Tommy, I think thank you for joining in.
yeah, sure thing.
Always good to see you. Looking
You
forward
too,
to
man.
what you and Matt are going to do.
Yeah,
We need
hopefully
to,
getting it started that soon. He's working on a logo, and I think we got a name for it, and we got a time figured out. So that's just a matter of putting all the pieces together and shoving off. So,
right on. That's what's up. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do, and
yeah.
and when you and Jimmy get together, it's always like a party too. So,
Oh yeah, that's
I
always a
look,
good time. I always look forward to that.
yep, look forward to all the stuff that you guys are doing. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and bail out, man. I'm gonna
yeah,
me
but
and my kids we're flying solo, so
nice.
I'm gonna find out something that we can eat and.
Yeah.
That's it. So,
All
for
right.
all of you watching, thank you for attending our TED Talk. Thank you for growing with us in real time. And until the next time, be sure to check out Aaron on Sunday. I'll also check out my live stream on Sunday. Look forward to Tommy and Matt coming up. They're going to be. I think you guys are going to be doing Mondays. Is that correct?
Tuesdays is the plan
Tuesdays.
right now.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. So Tommy and Matt will be doing Tuesdays. And then we're going to be onboarding some more shows as in 2024. So we're really excited about that. So thanks for coming on, Tommy. Always a pleasure talking to you. You're one of my
Absolutely.
favorite people walking the earth. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Right
So,
back at you, man. Thanks.
yep. So until the next time, everybody, peace and hair grease.